In today's world, you can listen to a podcast focused on just about anything, from fantasy football tips to what's new in the dairy industry. And we decided that we are no exception to that rule. Welcome to the first episode of The Road to Rudgate Lane, hosted by Christian Simmons and Adam Smith, and produced by yours truly, Willard H. Duvall.
Hey, my name is Christian Simmons, and this is my third tournament that I'll be joining in a row. Prior to that, I had a 3-year hiatus, but love these guys. Many of them I went to high school with.
Hey, my name is Adam Smith. I've been a longtime member of the Willard H. Duvall basketball tournament. I played a little bit of basketball in high school, but quit after my sophomore year to focus more seriously on backyard pickup basketball, especially for this tournament.
Well, I know that Adam and I are pretty excited to be with everybody on this podcast. Couple things. Man, we're just excited for this year's upcoming draft. I think Adam has somewhat of an update himself on his status for the tournament this year. Adam, you want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, so when we, everything that goes in this tournament, Keegan Downey, of course, sends out, hey, what dates are available? So I marked off all the dates I was available. And the date that we ended up selecting with, it was a huge success for everyone except for me. I was planning on going to Alabama with my wife and her family. So I begged her. I said, hey, can we, maybe just delay the flight out? But it wasn't going to happen. So I'm a no-go for this year's tournament. I was in the last couple of tournaments. This one will be my first in a while, not participating. I'm sad about it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to miss you this year. You definitely show up to play every year and are a strong competitor. I loved your style of game. I wish I could see it, but I'm also really excited to see this new group of rookies that we're going to have this year. We have 9 new folks and tournament first, a husband and wife duo. It'd be really interesting to see if they end up actually on the same team. I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, but that is yet to be determined for sure. But as far as, the rookie rundown and the captains, Adam, from an outside perspective, what are kind of your thoughts looking at the lay of the land this year?
Yeah, so it's important to note that for this husband and wife duo, this isn't just ordinary duo. It is, of course, Jacob and Megan Shriek, which that name may not sound familiar, but perhaps you'll know the maiden name of Megan, which is Downey. And the Downeys just run the basketball tournament. My favorite all-time memory is when Joel Downey came and just ransacked all of us and won the tournament. It was incredible. So I'm really interested to see how they perform. But yeah, this class of rookies are looking pretty sharp.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm really excited this year to have my buddy Trey Beachy. He is a fellow Ball State grad. We're actually going to hear directly from him in a conversation that I had earlier this week with him. He's really excited to compete this year, and I think he's going to put his own player bio to shame, as you'll hear coming up. As well as our producer, Will Duvall, is actually on with us. You may not hear a whole lot from him, probably for a good reason, because the guy has the second pick of the draft. Will, do you have any just quick reaction? Don't want to shed too much light on your strategy, but any quick reactions, thoughts for being the second pick?
Sure. Honestly, I don't really like having such a high draft pick. I think that the draft is so strange, right? Because it's just 2 rounds. It's a snake pick 2-round game. And while there are certainly a lot of amazing players, I think I always value building a team. I always want to really build up how can I function as a team, as opposed to just kind of giving it to the good guy. Although, I say that Jason was on my team last year, league MVP. So that's kind of an unfair analysis of my own former picks. So I won't reveal necessarily who I'm planning to get. Although I will say, after hearing some of these interviews with Ray and George and Trey, the choice is not as black and white maybe as I initially would have thought when the draft picks came out. So I'm excited to just to see what happens. And once again, I just, my biggest thing is like, as long as the day is competitive, I'm happy, whether or not I am on the podium at the end of the day or not. If I was able to put a good day of basketball out there and see that everybody else did, I'm pretty dang happy.
Well, thanks for joining us today on this podcast where our very own Kris Simmons got to sit down with 3 of the incoming rookies this year for the Willard H. Duvall basketball tournament. He sat down with Trey Beachy, who he's connected with, Ray Schaaf, who is a brother of Dave Schaaf, who's a longtime member of the tournament, and also our very own George Poppas, who has run around in our circles for quite some years. And so we're really excited for you to get to know these 3 basketball players and athletes. And hopefully by the end of this podcast, you'll be better informed to know who you might be playing with and who you may want to pick.
We'll hear first from tournament freshman Trey Beachy.
This is your first time playing in this tournament. Your only connection is me to these guys. What do you want to tell the captains and fellow players of the tournament about Trey Beachy?
Man, I've been playing basketball almost all my life. It's been probably next to soccer my primary sports love, but I was always 5'10", and so not many people pick a 5'10" guy to play basketball the first off the bench. All throughout high school, it was more of a defensive specialist kind of mindset. I would go in to make the best play possible, for whether that was, guarding the best player or whether that was trying to get a different look on for our offense or for our defense. And so just any sort of way I could kind of bring energy, bring any sort of excitement back into the game. That was kind of my role in high school. But I'd say once college kind of came around, I was a little bit more free to do a lot more stuff, like just kind of roll the ball out, have fun, and pick up basketball games. And so I've gotten a lot better at scoring, a lot better at dribbling, just kind of all that stuff. I just played so much. I'd say so much more in college than I ever did in my 4 years of even like high school basketball. Right now I'm playing also most of the times every Tuesday and Thursday with a group of guys at the Y, ex-Ball State players most of the time. And so my game is constantly being challenged in that way. There are a lot of guys who are a lot bigger, a lot better than me. But it kind of forces you to rely on some of the things that you have in your bag. So some of those things, like most of the time I'm quicker than most of the bigger guys, or a lot of the times I can get into nook and crannies that other players can't get into, and just poking the ball and just kind of messing around, but also taking it serious in the same way. And so it kind of, when somebody's just bigger and stronger, it kind of forces you to create more opportunities for other people and allow you to pull a lot of attention away from maybe one of your better players, and then try to get other people in scoring positions too. Man, when everybody's involved in playing hard and playing just like all out, I love it. There's no better feeling when all the guys are going at it hard on your team, because that just gives you motivation to keep going.
Yeah, I think Trey makes a really good point in what he's saying, and I think it's true for everybody that plays in this tournament, is that their game has changed very much since high school. And I think I'll be the first to say that Trey's player bio does not do his game justice. He is a serious offensive threat.
I think it's interesting, though, because since you are the only connection to him, Kris, I think this is really true for a lot of the captains. But if you haven't seen a person play, it is so hard to go out on a branch and draft them number 1 if you haven't seen them. I mean, sure, you can read their bio, get an understanding. He mentioned in his interview here, he played a little bit of soccer, knew his role in basketball, but it's just really hard as a captain to pick someone who, you just don't have much experience with. So there has to be a lot of trust if he's going to be going in the first 5 picks, but anything can happen. And so I'll be interested to see where he falls.
If I could even speak to some of what you're saying, Adam, I agree. You make a good point that he is a first time. His only connection is me to the tournament. But if I could give him any accolades, one would be honestly, playing style reminds me a lot of Logan Galbraith. I would say one of the key differences, and now I love Logan. Logan's consistent and accurate in terms of his overall ability to score. Trey is extremely talented at being able to pick the right times to shoot the ball and the right times to dish it off and create other opportunities for other players. I love Logan. Again, I played with him last year, and I wouldn't change anything about his game. That I would say just the key difference is Trey's first look is to find somebody else an opportunity for them to shine. And he's really, really, really strategic and tactical with the way that he plays.
I was just going to say, too, to kind of piggyback off of something you're saying, Kris, even though I make that lighthearted comment, it sounds like he approaches the game very analytically, and he's looking for matchups. And that's something that doesn't get discussed, I think, enough in the tournament. There's the initial gameplay and strategy that comes into any game that day. But to have a player, especially, to be analyzing each player and to be looking for mismatches and, open areas, it's one of those things that I think is going to be undervalued in the draft potentially, but it's going to be huge on the day of. Because like you said, it sounds like he's got a high IQ. He's very unselfish. He's willing to get the other people involved. In the words of Delroy or Portman, he's willing to make the extra pass. And I think he's going to make a great teammate, just very down to earth. I'm interested to see where he goes.
I personally think he would be a really good match with Keegan. I think, again, don't know what Keegan's strategy is, what he's thinking, what kind of team he's building. I think he'd be a really good fit there. I also think that, again, just to be more realistic, I think he'd be a value pick for Chaz. If he falls late into the first round, I think Trey would be a really good pick for Chaz. He's unselfish, like you said, and like you said, I said. But he's also super reliable with the ball.
Yeah, I have a hard time knowing where exactly he's going to go on the draft. I think there's so much unknown. When the captains are considering who to pick, I mean, that's a big factor that comes in to this whole equation is, do I pick someone that has a lot of upside but is unknown? Or do I pick someone that I know who maybe has a smaller upside? Two people that really come to mind that I think would make great teammates with Trey, and they kind of fall on the ends of the spectrum here, but pick number 3, I think Thomas Crocker would gel really well with him. Thomas is super unselfish, and he has a wide arsenal when it comes to his basketball skills. I think Trey would fit in very well. And then also, if Trey falls a little bit lower in the draft, the person that would love to pick him up has to be Peyton Hawk. Peyton is coming off of a championship. He is extremely competitive, and I think Trey would be the perfect teammate to make a run for a repeat here. Again, I don't know if he's going to fall that far to pick number 10 to Peyton, but I know Peyton would be eager to get his hands on somebody like Trey.
Next up, we'll be hearing from the older brother of a longtime participant in the tournament and the man solely responsible for getting our stats recording off the ground over the last few years, who's given us such great insight into player performance through the tournament. Please welcome Dave Tri-State Schaaf's older brother, Ray.
I'm Ray Schaaf. I'm the older brother of David. I believe everyone else calls him Dave or Big Dave. So if you're picturing him when you're thinking of me, you are very mistaken and wrong. And so I just want to be that be my lead foot, that I am nothing like David in life or in basketball. That's the first introduction. Anything else, I think I like to let my game speak for itself. I tell David every year, I don't know how this whole tournament started. You know, I mean, it's what, the 11th year or something like that?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to claim some sort of ownership, but I will say that growing up in high school, me and my friends played dunk ball. And I feel like that it seems to be the older siblings of a lot of the people that are playing in these tournaments. And so I would always tell my brother, like, you need to invite me because I'm the godfather of this tournament.
Yeah.
So I finally was invited. So I jumped at the opportunity. I don't know this is what you're looking for here, but a player comp for myself in dunk ball, I think, is Nikola Jokic. Or if you want to even go old school, Arvydas Sabonis. And so kind of that inside out, I can play on the inside, I can score, I can shoot, and I facilitate. So I'll set everyone else up. Defensively, I'm there.
So that's more of the long of it. What's the short of it? How would you describe your play in one word?
Dominant. I mean, I feel like you could take the team. We kind of talked about it, and I think I put in my bio too. I'm a versatile player. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately I would gel well with whomever. But if you want a team of height, I'm your guy. If you want a team that can play on the inside and bang, I'm your guy. If you want to play on the outside and spread the floor, I'm your guy. If you want defense, I'm your guy. So I don't know what else you want.
Sure.
That I don't offer. You know what I'm saying? I will say I'm going to Croatia this summer. Last couple summers I've been there, I've been playing with pros. Somehow I get the secret invite to these open courts that are like legitimately have been scouted by club teams in Croatia and Europe. So that legitimately is my plan, is to run with some pros in Europe. I'm making a list of everyone that passes over me. And if you don't choose me, you're going to be sorry.
I can also confirm this, speaking here as Adam Smith. I'll never forget that. So Ray is about 5 years older than his brother, Dave. And I'll never forget being a freshman in high school. And Ray came back from, I think he was going to Ball State at the time. And he came back and he was at a basketball practice. And I saw him wind up and just dunk the basketball. And I was like, whoa, was crazy athletic. I remember seeing that as a freshman in high school at the time.
He's going to make sure that he understands somebody's thought process before moving forward, which is extremely smart and extremely bright. But I think it's just a small glimpse into his mental fortitude going into the tournaments. Yeah,
I would agree with that, because some people don't understand the difference between the two. They understand that it's on a lowered rim for, dunk ball, as he says it, but the approach and the skills and the whole capacity is completely different. When you're going 3-on-3 backyard dunk ball versus 4-on-4, 5-on-5 in the rec gym.
And not, on top of all of that, I feel like there's the element of just, I'm not saying that Ray will go into this, but I think in Willard H. Duvall ball, there's some dirtiness, some grittiness maybe is a better word, to describe how your play style has to change. Fouls are not called lightly here. And so you can't go in thinking that this is just going to be, things called left and right.
And I would say too, he even alluded to it a little bit earlier, but he's calling himself the godfather of this. So there has to be this pride underneath the skill as well, that he's just going to show up and be an instant ad for the team that he's on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that he has made a comment about his height a couple of times. It's kind of weird to think that me and Ray are probably the tallest. You really have any giants this year, as we've had in previous years.
Yeah, so I think, given that I know Ray personally, and then I was able to sit in on this conversation with him, and just sheer number of picks, I would be very surprised to see Ray drop past 5th pick. I'd be very surprised for somebody who has somebody in the first 5 picks of the draft would really pass up on Ray, because he really is somebody who is a solid player. He has a high basketball IQ, and he somehow makes shots that don't look like they're going to go in. I've seen others who have that skill more than he does, but he knows how to use his body to get to the hoop. That being said, to be more specifically, I think he would be a really good match with Rob. I think Ray and Rob and maybe another guard outside of Ray on that team could be a really solid team in this year's tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you, Christian. When I was looking at the list of captains, he has to be within the top 5. I'm looking at some of the people who are available. You look at anyone like Brendan Sutherland, Brock Snoffer, Trajan, some of those guys who are marquee, available players. Ray's going in the top 5, and Rob was my pick too, if he's able to go that far. Charlie Duvall's a wild card. You don't know where he's going on the first pick. Will's second pick, and again, he's noted before, he's really looking for chemistry. I think him and Ray could be a good pick, but Will may want a smaller guard to go with there. Thomas Crocker, he's got some buddies that are in the draft. He could pick one of his friends. I think if Rob is able to get Ray, that's a steal, and their team's going to be doing pretty well.
And last, but certainly not least, we'll be hearing from our old friend, George Poppas, making a spectacular return after a long hiatus.
I'm George Poppas. As you know, I'm pretty sick. Haven't played since 8th grade. Just been focusing on my physique. I'm a lot thicker than I used to be, but it's not all bad thickness. There's nothing really else to say. I'm just going to let my play speak for itself on the day.
Well, George, we're super stoked to have you this year. I know that you're super tight with a lot of the guys and grew up, up until 8th grade, pretty tight with all of them, Logan especially. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be a Logan and George team in the future.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun to see. You guys are both thickened up. Logan, maybe not as much as you, but certainly the last time that I saw Logan, he was much thicker than he was in high school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that man's put on some good weight. And see, Logan's also a monster. That's why I think we work well together. That man has always been super aggressive. So I think Logan would be a wise man. I've already been in talks with Logan a little bit about what we can do together.
A little BTS there. Why did you say yes this year?
I think I just had some unfinished business with this crew, Like, I've been seeing the Willard Duvall Classic happen year in, year out. And I was like, why am I not invited? I didn't know if they're scared. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to come in and sweep, right?
Uh-huh.
Just come in 1-peat, 2-peat, 3-peat. Or they just lost my number or something. I don't know if you ever heard the term like Mongo. Like kind of just like, we just want to bully people. I just want me. I think Downey is a captain, right? So
I think so.
The triple threat can't happen, but I was thinking those three just absolute monsters with long dancer's legs.
Yeah. And
the physique to go with it.
What do you want people to have on the top of their minds as like the last words George had before the draft?
I'm not just coming for the 1-peat. I'm coming back like if they'll have me for the 2-peat, the 3. I'll just keep going. So it's like that's all I want people to know is that this isn't just going to be a one-time thing. This is just going to be a new norm. I thought this is my opportunity to prove that I should have been here all those years, I
gotta say, I have no idea what George Poppas's basketball abilities are right now. So I can't speak I also can't speak really from past experience, but I will say that having a larger physique, broader shoulders, so on and so forth, is really important for this tournament. You have people, I think of Nick Jeffries, as a perfect example of somebody who's broad, who's going to work their way and just muscle their way to the hoop, get boards, get rebounds, so on and so forth. I think if what I'm hearing from George is true, that he has thickened up quite a bit, I think that's certainly something he has going for him.
Well, and honestly, if you want to do well in the draft, take skill out of it. There's two things. There's confidence and chemistry. And since George, I mean, you can even tell from his interview, he's a pretty confident guy. And I know he's pretty confident in his basketball capabilities, being able to play basketball with him growing up and later elementary and middle school. I know he's going to do just fine. So his skill level is there. I'll be interested to see, because Logan is the last pick of the draft. I don't know if George will fall that far. But I know whatever team he's going to be on, he's got the skill, he's got the chemistry, and he's probably got all that stuff.
So we talked about this with Ray, and I think it's important to kind of bring this in when we talk about all of the other players that we're talking with in this conversation. But Georgia, I'm a little bit remiss as to where he's going to fall in the draft. I think this being, again, his first time in a long time playing, especially playing with just this group of guys, I have no idea, and gal, I should say, I have no idea where he's going to fall in this year's draft. I think people might sleep on him. I think there might be a good chance that Logan still has the ability to pick him up. I think, yeah, I'm at a loss for George right now.
Honestly, the way I'm kind of hearing some of this is he's just trying to downplay himself so much. I mean, he's a former D1 soccer player. He's going to be just fine when it comes to going the length of the tournament and then, hanging out with all the guys. I think he's trying to downplay himself a little bit, saying, yeah, I put on a couple pounds. I don't know how I'm going to be able to. I think he's going to do great. I think he's just trying to downplay himself. Honestly, if he was being super strategic in this interview, which I don't think he necessarily is being super strategic, but I would say he's probably just hoping that he gets picked by the right person. And that's probably what his mindset is going into this draft. But George is going to bring a lightheartedness to a team. There's that fine line between kind of goofing off and having a light, fun spirit. And I think he definitely leans towards that, having a light and fun spirit while being still very, very competitive. So I see George going maybe 4, 5, or 6, looking at Robert Olson, Keegan Downey, and James Harrington kind of falling in that lineup. That's probably where I see him going. But if anything, it's exciting to hear that, hey, I'm not just coming this year. I'm going to be coming for years to come after this, if you'll have me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know that I previously mentioned, I don't know where he's going to land. I still feel that way. I don't know if he'll go top 5. I'm just thinking of it in terms of pure chemistry. Not that he's like a toxic player by any means. I think he would be a great asset for any one of the captains that are slated to pick early. I just would be curious to know, how his style play would fit in with the first 5 people that are that do have picks. That being said, he'd be a very strong asset, being a big guy. And like you said, Adam, I think just the perfect explanation is like he was a D1 athlete. Like he there is no question that he's an athletic man, and that won't show up at all. Like he's going to come to play, and it'll be real competitive games that he's in.
And the other thing to add with that too is, I don't know how much of this is going to come out during the tournament, but I'm sure he's a trash talker in the best way possible. Like he's going to keep those games very competitive, very fun. And honestly, he's probably going to he might get under some people's skins, just in the way in which that he'll talk, once he gets a board or grabs or he gets a block or grabs a rebound, he's going to let people know about it. So it's going to be fun to watch him play this year for sure. I think George would, if he's available, is probably going to be 5 or 6. Like I said, I think him being with Keegan Downey or James Harrington is probably going to be the best fit. Keegan and James are both taller athletes. George, too, is pretty tall. I think he's like 5'11", 6 foot-ish. but definitely a guard. He's going to complement James and Keegan well. And James and Keegan both have, I would say, a pretty good familiarity and working relationship with George. So I think he'd make a great pick there. I just don't see him dropping all the way down to number 12 to Logan.
Yeah, I'm not going to change anything that I've said up to this point. I think ultimately, Adam, you make great points about falling with Keegan. I would be very surprised if Charlie picked George up. I think that would be an interesting matchup. But I think where I could see strides made would be him and Kris go. And I don't know who the third would be, but I think that would be a really interesting combination, just because Garris is a consistent big man who likes to shoot the bank threes. And then George, who's also just a wide body, is going to come in there, and that strength would definitely be the MO of that team.
And I think that's the interesting thing about the draft, of course, now that it's aging along with us. It's one thing when you're playing in high school and in college, you have a pretty good understanding of like where people are at, what they're doing, what they're involved with when they're in school and, in undergrad. But, I'll just say, like, even as we have phased out of athletics and we're moving into our careers, I think that adds another diversity or another, I think it just adds a unique element to the draft because you just don't know exactly where people are at.
I think I always look forward to the tournament, specifically the day, because kind of to your point, Adam, I'm getting to see people that I haven't seen in a year most times. It's been 365 days ish, give or take, whenever the date lands for the tournament. It's such a delight to see everybody and catch up and hear the things that they've experienced in the last year. But that being said, the draft is a very different experience. We're not on there to catch up and have good chuckles. All of the focus is on the draft itself. And I think this is a great time to kind of lean into, what would be your mindset coming into it, Adam? And then I'm happy to share kind of what my thought would be if I were a captain. Totally speculation here. We're not going to have Will come in and share his own thoughts. We don't want his cards to be shown at all, since this is going before the draft. But Adam, what are some of your thoughts? How would you come into the draft? Whether or not you had a 1 or 2 or 3 pick in the first round, or maybe you were sitting closer to the middle of the draft altogether.
So, being a captain in the past, there's a couple of things that come to mind. First, you have to think about the order. Since we do kind of like a snake draft, where you're at in the draft really has so much importance on how you draft. But I think the second thing that oftentimes doesn't get talked about nearly as much is your connection to the people. I think I'm no stranger to realize that chemistry is huge for a team whenever they are playing on the Saturday that we play, the tournament. And so whenever you're playing, like, you have to keep in mind, all three of us, me, Kris, Will, we're all from Kokomo, but now the tournament has expanded our city into other connections. And so there's other people coming from all sorts of different backgrounds who looks like a good athlete on the card. Like, there's people that show up, on tournament day and you're like, wow, I should have picked them because they just, they're shooting lights out. But I think that's the beast of the draft is sometimes, you're looking over the different bios of the players. Just simply reading a bio is not going to exactly give you the full depiction of what kind of basketball player that they may be if you don't know who they are. So anytime that you're picking a player, it's always really hard because there's the element of the unknown of the players, and just where you fall on the draft. I always typically liked the middle to end of the draft. I think when you get towards the front, it can be harder just because there's so many draft picks that happen in between your pick and your second pick that will happen later that round.
I'll also say, if there's anything that defines the tournament, it is that idea of endurance. This is an all-day event, and just as much as you want someone who can endure till the end physically, I think Adam's point of chemistry is just as valid, because especially when you get towards the end and you realize oh shoot, he was playing a lot better earlier in the day, but now that he's exhausted, how can I still amp him up to be the best player that he can be for those later tournament games? We've seen many people that do incredibly well early on, but just do not have the gas in the tank to make it till the end of the day. So you want to pick those people that are humble enough to accept their own limitations earlier in the day, that ultimately you can use to your advantage when it comes to those quarterfinal and semifinal games.
But the interesting thing that happened last year, I remember, was, and here's the thing too, there's always some unwritten rules that happen. So as we've talked about already before, there's people who come to the draft through just one specific person. And sometimes there can be that underlying unwritten rule that, hey, I'm bringing them to the draft and I need them on my team. And so I remember last year, as the draft is going through, Logan Galbraith brings his brother, Brandon. And as he brings his brother to the draft, he's, assuming, hey, he's going to be on my team. But the tricky part is Logan doesn't pick Brandon first. He picks someone else. I can't remember who it was at the time, but he picked someone else. Was it you, Kris?
That's actually a good point. I don't know that it was me. I don't believe so. I think I was second pick. He picked up somebody else because I think
believe
it was
either Brendan. It was either Brendan or Eric. I think it was Brendan maybe, because they ended up being a clean trade with Garris's team.
Yep.
Yeah. So then you have a person who has been in the tournament the last couple of years, Garris Go, who picks up on this. And again, he doesn't have necessarily some of the relationship with some of the other players. So he says, you know what, if you're not going to take him, I'll take your brother. So he takes him, and then a whole sort of flurry went down. I wasn't behind the scenes, so I don't know what happened, but I know that there was a flurry of text messages. And we had a tournament first trade where Logan traded with Garris to bring his brother back.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to know if anybody's going to try to pull a fast one this year, or maybe a number of captains try to pull a fast one and try to do some sort of mid-draft trade, because the reality is once we hit the last pick of the draft, it's over. There's no more trades. There's no more swapsies. Whoever's on whoever's team, that's how things end. I think just to add to, the whole strategy thing and what we're speculating here, I think it'd be good to just really quick think about what are the possible themes this year. Last year's theme was the Olympics and picking countries from around the world to kind of commemorate that. I know I can say for me, my favorite, what I would love to see as the theme, and what was my vote when voting for captains, was teams that are fictional, completely fake. They're from movies, from TV shows. I thought it would be really, really neat to see fictional teams come in and see everybody's kind of thoughts and perspective on, what fictional teams are they aware of, and how to bring that into this year's tournament. Adam, do you have any guesses?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have so many creative people, so it's hard making any predictions that are actually going to be true. But again, I'm not going to be in the tournament this year, unfortunately. But one of the things that I think about that's pretty cool is the fact that we have our first woman coming into the tournament. And so I don't know. I think it would be cool to do WNBA teams. I know that there's a lot of those around. What do you think of the Fever or any of the other WNBA teams? But man, that would be awesome to do WNBA teams.
I'm not going to reveal the theme in this podcast. So I will just say the one that was not voted on this year, I did not think about until afterwards, but I think would be cool for a future one, would potentially be an NBA Big Three team spanning across history. So you think of, the Heat Big Three with LeBron and Bosh and Wade, or maybe you got a Michael, Scotty, and Dennis team. I think that would be a great way to just get everybody involved. And obviously everybody loves getting jerseys. So it'd be a fun little next thing. So maybe in the future that could be on the table. Thanks for listening to the first episode of The Road to Rudgate Lane, hosted by Christian Simmons and Adam Smith, and produced by yours truly, Willard H. Duvall. We'd love to hear your feedback on the first episode and hear what you'd love to hear in future episodes of the podcast. Otherwise, we'll see you on July 30th for the 11th annual Willard H. Duvall Memorial Basketball Tournament, the Day of Reckoning.